Using plant nutrients is a surefire way to get a bigger, better yield out of your plants. But there are different ratios and mixing schedules depending on a few things, like whose nutrients you're using, what part of your grow you are in. Are you in the beginning stages? Are you in the end stages? All of these things factor into how much nutrients and which nutrients you are going to be mixing for your plants. And this video is going to go into everything you need to know about when and how to mix your nutrients. Before you even start mixing up your nutrients, make sure that you get some rubber gloves or something to put on your hands. This way you don't have to worry about getting the nutrients on your hand because it could cause some skin irritation. Yo, but for real, it's kind of hot and I'm gonna get really sweaty hands if I leave these on right now, so I'm not gonna leave them on. Feeding your plants nutrients is broken into two stages, the vegetative stage or the growth stage, or the flowering stage or the bloom stage. The first 4 weeks is your vegetative state, and the next 7 weeks and all the way up until maybe 12 if you need it is your flowering stage. And since we do have our own starter kit that comes with its own feeding chart, I'll use this as our example. According to the feeding chart that's on our starter kit, for the first week, you can use between 5 to 9 milliliters of base A and base B, 1 milliliter of plant enzymes, 1 milliliter of golden tree, 2 to 5 milliliters of CalMag and iron, 2 to 5 milliliters of flower stacker. Another thing that people get confused about is that they think that it's 5 milliliters in total of base A and base B, when in all actuality, it's 5 milliliters of base A and 5 milliliters of base B. So you're using 5 milliliters of each. And that means milliliters per gallon. So if you're using a gallon jug like this one, then it's very simple. Plant enzymes, 1 milliliter per gallon. Put 1 milliliter in here. But if you are using a 2.5 gallon jug, then you're gonna take that ratio and multiply it by 2.5. So if you're at a lake and you're using your whole entire lake to mix your ratios, then this lake holds 1.8 billion gallons of water. So in that case, you would use 9 billion milliliters each of base A and base B, 3,600,000,000 milliliters of golden tree, 1.8 billion milliliters of plant enzymes, and 3,600,000,000 milliliters of CalMag and iron. Determining what amount of water you are using per mixing will determine how much nutrients you are using for your mix. You have to pay attention to what you're doing while you're mixing your nutrients because you want to make sure you're pouring it into water and then thoroughly shaking it. That way you're not going to experience nutrient lockout. And if your feeding chart has a range like ours does, and it says between 5 and 9 milliliters for the first week, then maybe start out in the beginning of the week at 5 milliliters per gallon. And then by the end of that week, you can move it all the way up to 9 milliliters per gallon. But of course, depending on how your plants are responding to your nutrients. If they start to look a little burny, then maybe not use a lot of nutrients. If they're handling it okay, and it looks like they're giving you a lot more growth, then up your nutrients to the 9 milliliters per gallon by the end of that first week. Another way you can measure it is that 5 milliliters is equal to 1 teaspoon. So if you don't have a measuring cup, you can use a teaspoon to measure your 5 milliliters. You also want to make sure not to burn your plants. You can get nutrient burn from overfeeding your plants, and it's easy to see if you are burning your plants by looking at the edges of your leaves. A lot of people also might mistake this for a nutrient deficiency, as in your plants look a lot like they're lacking nitrogen or potassium. But a nutrient burn is on the tips of your leaves and very much so looks a lot like your plants are burning. And in this case, you can either flush your plants or you can just draw back on how much nutrients you are giving them. Another tip is trying to just solely remember what week you're on will make it so that you might get mixed up in your weeks and completely ruin your feeding schedule. A good way to avoid this is either to have the feeding chart close by so you can just check off what week you're on, or have a calendar next to your plants so you know exactly how much you're feeding your plants at what week and what time. Otherwise, you might just mess it up and then you don't know what week you're on and then it's just like a hassle. It's easier to write it down to keep track, so just do that. Just trying to use the nutrient bottle to pour directly into a small measuring cup is really annoying and difficult to do. So I would suggest using a small dropper or syringe to precisely measure how much nutrients you are putting into your measuring cup. So that way you do not mess up your ratios. And after you're done mixing your nutrients, you can use it on whatever you want to grow it as big as you want. So if you follow this feeding chart, make sure that you use little cups and droppers to get a precise measurement of how much nutrients you are feeding your plants, then you'll be very good and your life will be a lot easier when it comes to feeding your plants its nutrients. And make sure that you consider subscribing to this channel because there is going to be a lot more information-rich, entertaining content for you from me. Leave a comment down below if you guys have done this before, and if you have any other extra tips, then maybe I'll pin it to the top of the comments. And I love you. I'll see you guys in another video. Bye. I don't know how high this drone is, but it's coming in hot. So if you've watched this far, leave a comment saying Tony almost got his head chopped off trying to make a video about how to mix your nutrients. I'm definitely subscribing. And I'm definitely not gonna fly a drone at my head again. Love you, bye.